You got millions of Americans finding out the hard way. At some point, the money runs out and the party ends. So we got car repos surging, foreclosures spiking, and the student loan delinquencies are becoming hard to hide. So they're exploding past historic records. But this isn't just about a rough patch. It's the unraveling of an entire financial illusion, one swipe, one debt payment, and one layoff at a time. And so here's the uncomfortable question no one wants to answer. What happens when millions of Americans hit their breaking point all at once? And in this video here, I'm going to look at the data and what it's really telling us and what's likely coming next. And that is worth talking about. All right, so I want to take a minute, share some thoughts in reference to just some recent data points to really highlight the difference between the Wall Street narrative that we've been fed and the Main Street opinion and narrative that people are actually feeling. And so there's two camps. There's the mainstream individuals that tell us that everything is fine, of which I'm going to share some stuff with you in that regards. And then there's some stats and surveys that actually tell what people are experiencing in real time. And boy, are they worlds apart in reality. So in this video here, I'm going to break down three things worth paying attention to. And one of them is the warning signs that's hiding in plain sight. And while the repo wave is just beginning. And the next one is the false narrative behind the middle class. And then of course, what comes next when benefits vanish, layoffs spread, and desperation sets in. And so if you guys want to make sure to never miss one of these little quick takes here, then definitely hit that thumbs up button to show your support for the channel. And as I'm dropping these stats and facts, if you have thoughts, ideas, suggestions, or comments, leave them down below. And of course, if you're new, make sure you subscribe so you never miss one of these. But more importantly, I don't gather all this information just for fun. I do it to try to educate people and to inform people as to what's going on and to give people a counter narrative to what they're being told. So that's why it's important to take this and share it so more people can get a better understanding of what's actually going on here. But first, I want to start off with the Wall Street, or as I call it, mainstream narrative that's being given to us by those in positions of power. And it happens to be from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent himself, who not only happens to be Treasury Secretary, but also the fill-in for the IRS Commissioner at the same time. And the stuff he tells us here, in my opinion, has become a complete joke because everybody and their mother know a much different story than what they're trying to tell us here. But as it says here, America's golden age is underway and the best is yet to come. Inflation is down, energy prices are down, and real wages are up. And he's saying in 2026, the working Americans will see bigger refunds and higher take-home pay thanks to President Trump's one big beautiful bill. And so let's take a quick listen as to what they're trying to sell us in this one.
The economy looks pretty good. Could be growing as much as 4%. I'm looking at some deflation, energy deflation, gasoline deflation, agriculture, commodity deflation. Budget deficits seem to be coming down. Even spending may be coming down. I mean, I know you're tweeting on this stuff. Things look pretty good at home, huh?
Larry, things look great, and they're good now. I think 2026, 2027 are going to be great years because, as you know, part of what's happening with the tax bill is the president's campaign promises, which he kept on no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, and deductibility of auto loans for American cars. On the first three, working Americans have kept their withholding the same. And you might recall, I'm also the IRS commissioner, so I can see what's going on at the IRS. And I can tell you that in the first quarter of the year, we are going to see substantial tax refunds for working Americans. On January 1st, working Americans will reset their withholding levels, and they will have substantial real income increases. So that's a pretty good combination. You get a refund and your weekly, monthly earnings go up. And as you said, we're starting to see this affordability crisis. We've gotten it under control. The first thing to getting it under control was stopping the Biden inflation. Now that we've done that, we are able to, as you pointed out, energy prices are down. I think that housing prices are a lagging indicator, especially in rates. So I think we could see that the CPI numbers start coming down next month, the month after.
So there you have it. CPI keep coming down at the beginning of the year. Wages are up. People are spending. Housing is good. Inflation is up. All that good stuff there. But what is really happening? It doesn't take someone with a PhD to really decipher what's a lie and what's the truth. And if you really want to know what people are experiencing, just look no further than the comments in that video there. Here we got one that says, completely detached from reality. A Jimmy John sandwich is $15. The next one, inflation is not down. Energy prices are down. Real wages are up. And then he got some graphs to go along with that. Then you got, yep, we're in the golden age, all right. 38 trillion for the first time in history. And one thing I can't leave out is that we can't afford groceries. But then again, this picture here says Trump family doubles fortune to 10 billion 1 year after presidential election. So that's just some simple comments from people who left their thoughts about what Scott Bessent had to say. But then again, that's the Wall Street mainstream narrative that I'm trying to give some stats and facts in reference to things that aren't lining up. And let's get into that. Because ultimately, there are lots of warning signs that are no longer subtle. And so let's start with the very first one that you can't ignore. So according to the latest AP NORC poll, 68% of U.S. adults now describe the economy as poor. That's not just partisan grumbling at all. That's a quiet scream from the base of the economy. And now we're seeing it spill into the hard data. Now check this out. We got car repossessions, which are projected to hit 3 million by the end of this year, which is the highest since the global financial crisis. Then you got foreclosures, and the filings are up 18% year over year. Then you got the subprime auto loan delinquencies that have more than doubled since 2021, now sitting at 6.43%, worse than the health situation and 2008 GFC crisis. And then you got nearly 10 million student loan borrowers are now either in default or in late stage delinquency. So this isn't a blip. This is a system cracking altogether. So you got car payments, which are often the last bill people stop paying because they need to get to work. And so when repossessions spike like this, it means that they're clearly out of options. And that's exactly what's happening. And then you got the idea that the false middle class was built on borrowed time. And so here's the uncomfortable truth most people won't say out loud. See, America hasn't had a real middle class in over a decade. So it's had a credit-fueled illusion of one. So for years, millions of Americans kept up the appearance by borrowing just to stay afloat. And so you got the buy now to pay later, you got the 0% car loans, you got student loans paused for 3 years during the health situation, you got credit cards, financing, groceries, and of course it worked until it didn't. And so now the bill is coming due, and so is the reality that people can't afford to pay all that back. And so the average person is more than $6,000 in credit card debt right now. Then you got inflation, which is shredded savings. And then you got rents, which are still near record highs. And nearly 67% of employed adults are now living paycheck to paycheck. So let that sink in for a minute. So you got people with jobs that even might have full-time jobs, can't afford to live. And so the working class, aka the people known as the middle of the income earners, the lifestyle is now a high wire act with no safety net underneath. And of course, when the safety net fails, so does stability for everyone. And so if you're wondering where this is going next, here's a flashing red light. So you got the SNAP benefits for more than 42 million Americans could be disrupted next month due to the ongoing government shutdown. So you might think, well, people might just have to adapt to it. But here's what preparedness experts have been saying for years. So when the food stamps stop, society doesn't bend, it breaks. And so the U.S. spends over $100 billion a year on SNAP, which is the largest food welfare program in the world. So if it vanishes, even temporarily, the ripple effects are unprecedented and potentially explosive. So at the same time, you got massive layoffs that are creeping in into sectors that were considered safe. Even Meta, spending billions on AI, is now laying off hundreds in its AI division. So you got AI was supposed to be the future, but even now, they're forced to cut costs because of the deflationary factors of AI. And so where does that leave the average American, you might be wondering? Stuck right in between, loaded with debt that can't be paid, and a system that's no longer willing or able to paper over the cracks. And so the narrative that Scott Besson is trying to feed the public and what people actually feel in the street are two different variations, with one being an illusion and the other being reality for some. And so for years now, the signs were always there, but you had to squint just to see them. But now you can't miss it. Just cut your TV on. Or better yet, check your social media feed, and I'm sure you know somebody or connected to someone who's now looking for another job, or even people that's forced to sell some things that they didn't think they would have to sell. And so between the repos, the defaults, and the layoffs, they aren't isolated events. They're symptoms of a system that's been stretched beyond its limits. And so the people at the top are still doing fine, of course, at least for now, but those at the bottom are fraying fast. And of course, desperate people do desperate things. So the question isn't if this will get worse, it's what happens when millions of people realize it already has. So once again, just taking a minute, sharing my thoughts on what's happening in the mainstream economy outside of what we're being told from mainstream news sources about how great everything is for American working people. And of course, you had to notice how whenever Besson talks, he talks about 26 and 27, which is designed deliberately to get people to look ahead in the hopes of better days while ignoring what's happening right now at the present moment. But then again, if you've been paying attention, you know better than that. Continue to do what you've always been doing, which is to continue to stack your weight up, find ways to generate cash flow so you always have some income coming in, and then strategically using that income to put to work on your behalf in different areas so that you'll be a person that can always add value regardless of what's happening in the economy. But once again, as always, just want to take a minute, share my 2 cents. Curious to hear what you guys think. If you found value, definitely hit that thumbs up button. Take this and share it so people can get an alternative perspective as to what's going on. And also check the description down below for some resources that'll definitely be worth your time. Other than that, catch you guys later.